The Paris attacks last week shocked and astounded the world. Over 130 people are thought to have died, with hundreds of casualties. The majority of those who died were young people. Across borders, young people face an increasingly insecure world.
Have you ever seen a dead body before?
No, it was my first time, and I was lying just next to one, which really was not in a comfortable position at that moment.
You must have been very, very frightened.
Yeah.
Tu comprends ce qui s'est passé? Tu comprends pourquoi ces gens ils ont fait ça?
Oui, parce qu'ils sont très 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 méchants. Les méchants, c'est pas très gentil les méchants. Et il faut faire vraiment attention parce qu'il faut changer de maison.
How do we respond to the threat of attack and terrorism? I asked a group of my fellow NCS of the National Citizen Service Youth Board Group what they thought of the Paris attacks.
I think that it's too publicised because other things happen in other countries, and then as soon as one thing happens in a country near, like in the Western world, as you said before, it's like some massive thing, and then also the media don't make it any better. They like blow up every situation and make it just like 100 times worse. And then the UK putting up their threat to like 4 or 5, like the highest it can be, like it doesn't help like other Muslims in like Western world countries who get like attacked, even though like ISIS is nothing to do with the religion.
Yeah, it just encourages the whole view that like Islam is terrorism and things, and it's like this and you get this whole thing of people generalising the topic and thinking like all terrorists are Muslims and all that sort of foolish views. And I think also because you get a lot of misinterpretation of the media, they have a duty to represent things fairly, and they fail to do that because it's like with the Facebook filters. I think is one thing I don't agree with is you get all these Paris like the French flags, and like fine, a lot of people will do it because they really do feel it's a tragic event, and it is a tragic event, but a lot of people start doing it because it's a trend, and also what ends up happening is you kind of like bring forth this idea that what happened in Paris is more important than what happened in the rest of the world and everyone else who's suffering from terrorism. And it kind of all goes back to this idea that in the eyes of the Western world, terror on the West is worse than terror anywhere else, essentially.
And also, many buildings have been put in the lights of the French flag up, whereas before, any other country that's had problem with terrorism, that's never happened before. So why, I'm not saying it's bad for them to do it, but why haven't they done it for other countries?
I feel as if a lot of things are, it happens in one place, it's more important than anywhere else, which necessarily isn't true because there have been a lot of terrible, worse things that have happened in other areas. For example, what's happening in Syria, many people, they know what's happening but they don't really do anything about it. When one bad thing happened in a major city that the Western world considers important, that's when everyone focuses their attention on it. But if it was on a smaller town in a place which no one cares about, then they won't necessarily put any light on it, which I find to be really disappointing, because it just shows our mentality. When I was watching BBC News, it was like everything was on Paris. Like 100 other things happened on Friday the 13th, they don't show that. I had to find out about like most of the things on Twitter, and that's not even like a valid place to like find out information because like everything on the internet's fake. So like I didn't even know like there was like an earthquake in Mexico and Japan, and that killed many people as well. But still, no one cares because something happened in Paris. Like ISIS attack Syria, say like every single day, and it attacks France once, and then everyone suddenly cares. It's kind of like just
I think it's because in our society we were bombarded by statistics every day, and it's so distant from all of us. We hear about statistics in Afghanistan and in places in the Middle East and places where we've never been there. We don't really necessarily care about them, And so when something happens to us that's so so close to us, it becomes so much more important and real, because people realise how close it is. So even though those events that are happening elsewhere, they're very important, we don't realise their importance until we feel their effect fully, and that's why it's been so publicised.
I feel it's like the speed of the response to everything that's happened in France. Like this morning we had a 1 minute silence. There's so many things happening and people are trying to do things to help them out, and that's really great. Like obviously I support that, but the fact that, like Amina said, things happen in Syria every day and suddenly like there's not enough resources or there's no time to help them, like it's...
I just feel like the whole media coverage and everything, it's quite biased. Like, you look at it and it's villainising Muslim people, but it's not just Muslim people. It's everyone, like people of colour. So like whether you're Muslim or you're Sikh or you're Hindu, you're still facing the consequences because you're being grouped together under this whole stereotype and like stigma of not even like being Muslim, but just being like a certain, like that, just that certain shade of brown kind of thing. And instant train. Like someone got assaulted, but he wasn't even Muslim, he was Sikh. And there's not a word for it, but the way that they're villainising these people on the small minority, like the KKK, for example, was the majority of them were Christian, but then you don't see people grouping all Christians, putting them all into the same basket. But as soon as one Muslim person, the whole religion as a whole, not even like the people, you could be from Poland and you could be Muslim, but it's not the people from a certain country, it's the whole religion, and the whole people haven't done their research into what the actual religion is about. It's not about all that.
It's like media brainwashes people.
Yeah.
And like they only see one point of view to everything.
I think that the media sort of, with the Paris situation, blown it out of proportion, but the coverage has been a bit disproportionate because you also had the bombings in Lebanon as well, which killed around 40 people, but you don't really hear about it in UK media, or we don't really have a minute silence for the Lebanese people as well. And so I feel that media should be a bit more representative of the whole world and not just countries we deem to be more important.
I think there's sort of a view that like because they're our neighbours that we have more of a duty to help them, whereas actually we have a duty to help all of these people. We shouldn't just be focused, just because Paris is closer to us doesn't mean that we should help them more. We should be helping everyone that's suffering from this. Also
So I was going to ask, do you mind if I throw in a question?
Sure.
My question is, if the attacks happened in this country, would you have the same views as now?
The thing is that we don't know what we would think until we've been put in a situation, and a lot of people say that, oh yeah, it would be different because it's London, it's a major city, but we have a more stable environment than Syria, but until we're actually placed in that situation, you don't know the true value of what they're saying. So you can't necessarily say that if something did happen here, that it would be any different from anywhere else, because no, it hasn't happened, and hopefully it never happens, like, God forbid that happens, but you can't, but many people do say that it would affect us differently, and maybe you would have a different view, but if hypothetically it did happen, most of our views would change, and the things that we said wouldn't necessarily have a value to them.
I feel like it wouldn't change my view, because if you live somewhere like Yorkshire, where it's like mostly white, you'd have a different view. But if you live somewhere like London, you come into contact with Muslim people every day. You have friends who are Muslim. You grew up with people who are Muslim. You know that your friend down the road wouldn't build a bomb. You know that they're friendly and they laugh and they tell jokes. They're not like this big villain, and like they're not gonna like try and bomb up your school. You know, you come into contact with them. But if you don't know and you live somewhere where that there isn't much diversity, then instantly in your head, if that's all you're being bombarded with, these negative images, then that is what you instinctively think. So because we live in London and we know what it's like to live alongside people who come from different backgrounds and different religions, I feel like it would be less biased in a way.
What is your view on the Paris attacks? Comment and subscribe.